Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Becomes a Pokemon Trainer. In this story, it is simply what you might expect. The story of My Hero Academia, but in world filled with not only quirks, but also Pokemon. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel, after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Third POV. 1 month ago. Izuku sat in the passenger seat of a white pickup truck, All Might driving, while Pikachu and Eevee sat in the back seat. Izuku stared at his phone, blocking his phone from the light of the morning sun, and finally messaging and texting with his latest friend from last night, Momo Yaoi Rozo. After she gave him her number, he promised that he will message her later to fully cement their contact information. He only now got to doing it because of the sudden meet-up with All Might after their meeting at their dinner celebration. Momo. So, I'm currently free today. Do you want to maybe hang out at my house? Izuku blushed heavily. The very thought of ever being invited to a girl's house seemed unbelievable to the formerly bullied teen, but now that it was actually happening, he felt his world was shattering for the perhaps 5th time in the past 24 hours. All Might peered towards Izuku, looking at his phone blushing, making him look like a red tomato with his green hair. The symbol of peace smiled teasingly. What's with the red face there, young Midoriya? Are you perhaps texting with your girlfriend? Serena or Momo? If it were possible for Izuku to blush shredder, he did. It's not like that. Izuku stuttered out. I'm just finally getting to texting this girl I became friends with last night during me and my mom's celebration dinner. Izuku suddenly looked confused and turned to the skeletal blonde with a suspicious. Wait a minute, how do you know her name is Momo? All Might looked momentarily panicked before coughing and quickly saying I just assumed from the look at your phone. Her name is on your phone there, isn't it? Izuku blinked and looked back at the phone to see that indeed Momo's name was labeled above as the person he was texting. Right. Izuku said, still feeling unconvinced about All Might's knowledge. Izuku turned back to the phone and typed his response. Izuku. Sure, I can come by, if you wish. Momo immediately responded. Momo. Great. Oh, I will send you an address to my house. Izuku. Thanks. I can come by in the afternoon. I have an appointment to UA for scoring first in the entrance exam. Momo. Oh, of course. That will give me plenty of time for me and cleaning crew to tidy a few things up. Hope to see you soon, Izuku. Izuku smiled before his mind did a double take. Cleaning crew. Izuku thought confused. After a minute of silence, All Might said, we are just about there. You nervous? A little. I still can't believe I did it. Izuku muttered nervously. That I somehow surpassed your score in the entrance exam. All Might chuckled. Believe it, kid. You scored first in the entrance exam, and, by UA tradition, you will be rewarded with a Pokemon of your choosing, a rare one at that. Still it kind of seems rather unfair. Izuku admitted, his face guilty. The requirement to enter the UA Hero course is to have at least 3 Pokemon in your party, right? It is. All Might said. Well, Eevee has been with me since I was young, and I only just got Pikachu officially on my birthday, because of the Pokemon possession laws for underage trainers. Izuku looked at his nervous fiddling hands. Where are you going with this little exposition? All Might asked. It's just that with this 3rd Pokemon, I'll have enough to enter UA's hero course, but what about the other students? Izuku asked. With what you said about tradition, it seems not everyone who did well in the entrance exam is rewarded a Pokemon, and will likely have to catch Pokemon on their own in the wild. But because I'm getting my 3rd handed to me, it feels like I'm getting by easy and it's rather unfair to the other students. All Might nodded, a serious expression on his face. I can see what you mean, young Midoriya. Toshinori replied. Only UA candidates that get in under recommendations in the top 3 of the entrance exam are awarded with a Pokemon. This is meant to come off as a show of achievement, but to you it feels like you're getting off easy, while others have to catch their own Pokemon. I can understand why you would feel guilty about this. All Might smiled. But it just proves once again why I picked well in choosing you to succeed me. Izuku's eyes widened and turned towards the symbol of peace who continued. It shows you have a good heart, thinking of others' struggles rather than your own personal glory. Likewise, it shows that you are willing to put in the hard work and not take any shortcuts, like participating in the entrance exam despite being my successor. I am once again in awe of you, young Midoriya. Such a selfless heart with a fiery passion and determination. Izuku gaped at his mentor and idol in shock, his eyes welling up in tears. Thank you, All Might. Izuku sniffed and wiped away his tears. Hey, enough crying there. Toshinori said. Well, I understand your guilt and why you feel undeserving of this reward. Remember what I told you back when I gave you one for all. There's a difference between being lucky and deserving. Izuku remembered All Might saying. One an accident, the other reward. Never get the two confused. Those words didn't just apply to one for all, it also applies here. All Might revealed. You worked hard to get where you are at right now. You only had one for all for a week, and you managed to score first in the entrance exam, besting other candidates that had years of figuring out their quirks, and all the while surpassing my own record. This reward isn't one just to pamper you, but is a symbol of your accomplishment, a reward you deserved for your hard work. Izuku gaped once again at the symbol of peace. The green-haired teen turned back to see his two Pokémon, who smiled and nodded at him, agreeing with All Might's words. Izuku smiled before turning back to the road ahead of him as they stopped by Yue's entrance. "You're right, All Might," Izuku said, his face now determined. "I have to accept my reward and be proud of my accomplishments. I can't just keep calling myself unworthy or lucky. I have to keep my head held high and humbly accept this reward. That's the spirit." All Might smiled, giving Izuku a thumbs up. They two got out of the car and walked towards Yue's gates. "But if it makes you feel any better, there is in fact an additional requirement for students with reward Pokémon gifted to them." "Huh?" Izuku said, confused. "To further prove themselves to enter UA, to go plus ultra as my alma mater says, they have to train said rewarded Pokémon to its first evolution, its secondary state, before orientation." Present. The students of Class 1 watched with stunned surprised eyes at the new man, his mere presence demanding their utmost attention, the very aura of the man illuminating and shining. "My name is Sengoku Taishi." The now revealed man spoke, his voice smooth and soft like silk. "Mr. Taishi or just Taishi would be alright." The man was tall, around a staggering 6'4", his pale white skin almost had a luminescent-like shine to it, and his white hair was long, reaching down to the middle of his back and luscious like a stream, with two, silver-colored bangs parted on each side of his face, that flowed down to his chin. The man wore a white professor's coat over khaki pants, and a button-up silver-gray dress shirt. In the man's hand, he held a brown briefcase with a Pokeball symbol etched into it. His chin and ears were slightly pointed, his nose thin and short silver-rimmed glasses placed over his stormy gray eyes. Izuku gaped to Taishi, a buzzing sound ringing in the back of his mind. He was suddenly drawn to the object hanging off the man's neck. An amulet, but one he had never seen before. The amulet was a green gem-like orb encircled in a golden ring, 4 lines of gold shooting outward diagonally, both right lines and left lines connecting by an arc of gold, making it look like a cross gate. Encircling the golden ring of the amulet were 18 multicolored gemstones, from a fiery ruby, a grassy emerald, a deep blue sapphire, and more. Staring at each individual gem made Izuku feel different. When he looked at the pitch-black obsidian, he felt grim, nasty, dark even, but when he stared at the sparkling pink diamond-like gem he felt elated, peaceful, bright almost. But when Izuku looked at the gem in the middle, it was the most intense. The green orb was perfectly roundish, no sign of a curve or indent on the gem, and appeared at first glance just a deep green stone, yet the closer to the center the green-haired teen looked, the more he could see a glint of whitish light that seemed to swirl and. "Shall we get started?" Izuku was snapped out of his staring by the voice of the new teacher. "Alright," Eraser said, seemingly unfazed by Taishi's presence. "I'll leave the class up to you. I'm going to take a nap." Grabbing his yellow sleeping bag, the insomniac teacher walked out the door, leaving the class with the new teacher. "Now to begin this, I would like to introduce myself a bit more, but like Eraser says, time is precious." Taishi spoke again. "As such, let us begin the afternoon class with a bit of a summary of what this class, and future classes with me, will be about. I understand that as exemplary students to have enrolled into one of the world's finest hero schools, nay schools generally, that you have read and fulfilled the requirements to attend, official and non-official. One particular requirement I wouldn't call it as such by any means, if anything, I prefer to call it as an unspoken rule of UA, so to speak. It's probably the rule that All Might told me a month ago," Izuku thought. "Here at UA, you will be pushed and trained to not only meet, but surpass our expectations to the highest degree." Taishi continued. "Not just in your quirks but your academics, emotional maturity, forward knowledge, intuition, experience, and understanding of the basics of Pokémon and the world we live in. And to cement the basics of Pokémon, this unspoken rule or pre-rite of passage to enroll here, after the exams, is to own up to at least 3 Pokémon. In accordance with the Pokémon possession laws for underage trainers that were established a few generations ago, as quirks started to rise, along with the hero and villain monikers among active quirk users, illegal Pokémon usage and collateral damages and casualties were too on a rise." Izuku frowned. "He's right," Izuku mentally said. "While not much is known during the dawn of quirks, what is known is that there was a large amount of chaos and uncertainty. Riots and protests, discrimination, large amounts of people using Pokémon on people. It was a nightmare back then to be someone with a quirk, a sort of reverse of now." Izuku's memories of his quirkless childhood flashed in his mind, much to his flinching displeasure. As such, in response to this situation, the leaders of the world came together and formed this law to lessen the amount of Pokémon an underage civilian could hold. Taishi explained. "There have been many controversies over this law and many others that likewise restrict the amount for adults and even heroes, but that is for another day." Recently, you've aged past the underage limit of 15, allowing you freedom to own more than one Pokemon, your legal civilian limit now up to a standard 6, though to pass this rite of passage, you only require 3, all of whom are registered under your trainer licenses. This is to show that you know most of the fundamental basics of the Pokemon world that will not need re-explaining. However, for a select few students, additional requirements, unofficial rules, were added. Excuse me, sir. Iida raised his hand. May you inform us of this select few students and additional rules? I fear that I am left confused as to who this may be referring to, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Of course. Taii replied with a kind smile. Most of you enrolled through the entrance exam and the rest by recommendations, and among the students that applied and got in through the entrance exam, the accepted students were ranked by number of both villain and rescue points, with the top 3 scores to be among this list of selected students, of which in this class included Jiro Kirishima, Katsuki Bakugo, and Izuku Midoriya. The students looked to the named 3 classmates, Kirishima wearing a proud smile, Bakugo simply scoffing, and Izuku smiling nervously. Additionally, the students who got in by recommendations are 2 added in this lineup, which includes Shoto Todoroki, Momo Yaoi Rozo, and Serena Mariella. Taii further informed, the class looking to a silent Todoroki, a neutral Momo, and a smiling Serena. Among these students, as well as the recommended students in Class 1B, their reward for such high accomplishments was a rewarded rare Pokemon. So for doing well in the entrance exam and for getting on recommendations, they got an easy second Pokemon. Mina asked. Indeed. Taii answered. However, do not mistake this by any means as a show of pandering or favoritism. Unfairness, as your homeroom teacher has already said, and unfair advantages are a common occurrence in life, and as heroes of the future, you are to meet this unfairness head-on, surpass your limits, and rise above it. Know that if you seek to prove yourself worthy of such reward and acknowledgement that you should push yourself to your limits and beyond them. As such, this rule of life has too been applied to your fellow selected classmates. This additional unofficial rule they were to achieve was to evolve, set rewarded Pokemon to its second form, its middle stage. Is this rule to push the rewarded students and their Pokemon to their potential? Tokoyami spoke out. A sort of challenge. In a way, yes. Taii said. But getting off topic, the purpose of this class is to have you know every type, every element, aspect, stat, and knowledge of the Pokemon world, and so, for today's class, I will be assessing that the basics of Pokemon have been firmly ingrained into your brains. And so for today, you will be battling each other in randomized single battles. The students chatted among themselves of this development, most excited over getting to show off their Pokemon, others were excited over seeing their classmates' Pokemon, and in testing their Pokemon and themselves against each other. Awesome. Serena cheered. Me and my Pokemon have been itching for a battle. Sir, may I ask a question of my own? Momo asked. Of course. Taii answered. Yesterday, in our battle training, we also used our Pokemon against each other, both partner and trainer. Momo said. Can you please enlighten us as to how these battles will be any different from yesterday? An astute question, Miss Yaoi Rozo. Taii complimented before answering. In your battle training, you were paired with another of your classmates, and each of you were allowed 1 Pokemon each. The exercise was mostly graded on your cooperation, teamwork, and strategy of you and your partnered classmate, while your Pokemon were your sidekicks and assistants. Make no mistake that while in this school we will push you and your quirks to become the best heroes you can become, Pokemon are still a vital part of our world. To heroes, they will be your most trusted partners, your closest sidekicks, or whatever terminology you wish to identify them as. Regardless, they will fight by your side and at your command, and such requires a perfect synergy of teamwork, knowledge of one another, and trust. In these battles, or exercise, we will have one-on-one battles against each other, no partners, just you and your Pokemon. I will personally evaluate your understanding of your Pokemon's abilities, their specific skills, the basics of Pokemon battling, and most importantly, their trust in you. Taii revealed. As the students nodded in understanding, Izuku turned to Pikachu, who smiled confidently at him, the Pokemon's eyes conveying all the proof of trust he has towards his trainer. Izuku smiled back with his own confidence and eyes of trust. An interaction that would be noticed by the new white-haired professor. One he would smile knowingly at. After changing into their gym uniforms, the students gathered around outside on the PE grounds. They stood before Taii, standing in the middle of a medium-sized Pokemon battling field. Good, now that you are all here, we can get started. Taii said, standing beside a large monitor with the names of the 20 students listed on the board. Repeating myself, these will be 3 versus 3 single battles, or more comprehendingly, each of you will fight another one of you in single battles, using your 3 Pokemon, and once all of your opponent's Pokemon are defeated, you will win the battle. Will the students battling each other be randomized like yesterday's training? Iida asked. Indeed it will. Taii said, smiling embarrassingly. My initial plan for today was a randomized bracketed tournament, but with the number of students here it wouldn't have panned out smoothly. The students chuckled at the embarrassed honesty their teach had. So instead I will simply have each of you fight a different student, each chosen randomly with this monitor. So you all and your Pokemon prepared? Izuku and the class nodded. Very well, then let us see what fate has in store for you all. Taii dug into the pocket of his white coat, brought out a controller and pressed a button. The names on the monitor flipped around, obscuring the names, and shuffled around in a twister of virtual cards. Finally, the cards settled into 10 rows, 2 cards side by side in each row with a versus in between. As they flipped, the students looked closely at their opponents. Match 1. Koda vs Yuga Ayama. Match 2. Mina Ashido vs Hantasero. Match 3. Denki Kaminari vs Kyokujiro. Match 4. Rikido Sato vs Ijiro Kirishima. Match 5. Meizo Shoji vs Yumikage Tokoyami. Match 6. Tsuyu Asui vs Ichako Uraka. Match 7. Tori Higakure vs Mashiro Jiro. Match 8. Momo Yaoi Rozo vs Tenya Iida. Match 9. Izuku Midoriya vs Shoto Todoroki. Match 10. Serena Mariella vs Katsuki Bakugo. The students looked at each and their opponents with most, like Kaminari and Kirishima, smiling excitingly, while others, like Momo and Iida, silently nodded at each other. Bakugo grinned maliciously. I might not get to beat the shit out of Deku's Pokemon like I wanted, but this works well. Bakugo turned towards Serena. I will show that worthless Deku that I'm the best by defeating his girlfriend. Expecting fear and worry, Bakugo was left surprised as Serena glaring at him, fiercely and determined. Finally, Serena thought. Sorry Izu, I respected your wishes to go easy on Bakugo up until now, but now I have an excuse to go all out on him. I swear I will make him pay for what he did to you. Izuku, meanwhile, turned to meet the icy, silent stare of Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki narrowed his eyes at him, which unnerved the green-haired teen only for him to stare back with determination and with a smile. May the best team win, Izuku said as he lifted his hand for Todoroki to shake. Todoroki's reply was turning away from Izuku and saying, I'm counting on it. Izuku frowned a bit by Todoroki's cold response, but shrugged it off and turned back to the teacher, occasionally glancing at the white and red-haired teen curiously. After the group was settled down, the teens moved 2 out of the field, with Koda walking towards the left side of the field and Ayama to the other. As the 2 got to their places, Taii, standing upon a referee's stand, yelled out, alright, for these battles I will be acting as the referee. The first matchup will be Koda vs Yuga Ayama. For these matches, each opponent will use up to 3 Pokemon, last team standing wins. No outside intervention, from direct action or use of quirks will be permitted. And on that note, I do wish to emphasize that statement for you, Mr. Koda. Taii spoke towards the peculiar shape-headed quiet teen. Not that I am accusing you of one to cheat, but your quirk's abilities would rather defeat the purposes of this exercise to begin with. Koda nodded sheepishly, rubbing the back of his neck. Koda. Quirk. Anivis. He can straight up talk and understand Pokemon, and can even mentally control all kinds of Pokemon upon command. The only downside is bug types are slightly resistant, and dark types are straight up immune. That seems a little rude to call him out like that, Higakure said. It actually makes sense that he would specifically call out Koda. Izuku responded. Not that I think that Koda seems like the guy to cheat or anything, but his quirk is the only one among us that directly affects Pokemon. If Koda wanted to, he could simply command Ayama's Pokemon to stop fighting, and they would do so. Indeed, Momo said. Well, Koda appears nice, even shy. His quirk would make a Pokemon battle or competition rather unfair. Do you understand the rules? Taii asked the 2. Upon the 2's nods of confirmation, Taii continued with, then send out your first Pokemon. I shall start first, Minami. Ayama said while struck a pose and bringing out a Pokeball, this one with a blue underside and a purple top with a sticker of a rainbow star with 2 smaller blue stars on it. Starmie, come out and dazzle us. The Pokeball was tossed into the air and opened out, releasing a standard white light, but was accompanied by a series of twinkling stars and sparkles. The white light landed and martialized as a purple star-shaped Pokemon, the front of the Pokemon having a red beeping jewel surrounded by a ring of gold, with a second flip-shaped star shell on its back. The Pokemon cried out, its back star-shaped shell spinning as it jumped. Cool, the dude has a fully evolved Pokemon, Zero said. Like you and your Lucario, Iida. Lucario and I have been partners since I was a little boy, so for Ayama to have this Pokemon fully evolved could mean that this is his own childhood Pokemon too. Iida deduced. Izuku brought out his own Pokédex, Sinnoh-Platinum Pokédex, and aimed it at the Starmie, the Pokédex male robotic voice-speaking Starmie, the mysterious Pokemon, and the evolved form of Stereo. At the center of its body is a red core, which sends mysterious radio signals into the night sky. What about those sparkles when the bowl opened? Kaminari asked. I wasn't the only one that saw that, right? That was a seal. Serena answered. A seal? Uraraka said, confused. Seals are stickers that are attached to Pokeballs, so that they have a different effect when a Pokemon appears out. Serena explained. Did you notice that his Pokeball was purple and blue? Serena pointed at Ayama's Pokeball back in his hand. That's a normal Pokeball, but it's inside a ball capsule with a seal placed on top, making Starmie's entrance different than normal. How did you know about that, Serena? Sue asked. Before I decided on becoming a hero, I originally wanted to be a Pokemon performer coordinator. Serena revealed. I love those performances and spectacles that I looked up all about things that would use for when I became one, like seals. What made you decide to be a hero? Mina asked. Serena was taken aback, the memories of her father and her decision flashing in her mind. It's personal, Serena said quickly. She turned to Izuku, who gave her a kind, comforting smile, when she returned gratefully. Oh, I'm so sorry. Mina apologized. No, it's fine, Serena said. But in the end, I decided that after I become a hero, I might try out performing after all. Kyoka overheard and whirled to look at Serena in surprise. She's just like, is something wrong, Jiro? Momo's questioned, snapping Jiro from her thoughts. No, Jiro said, a bit too loudly. It's nothing. Just thinking. Koda grabbed his own Pokeball and tossed it. Bunary, I choose you. The Pokeball opened, shot out another beam of light, and out materialized a brown rabbit with 2 big ears, fluffy, light tan fur on the tips, 2 short arms, its lower body covered in the same light tan fur, its feet light tan as well, and a brown puff fur tail. It opened its black eyes, 2 dots of light tan just above the Pokemon's eyes, and smiled. Bunary. Eh? So cute. Mina and Higakure squealed. Serena brought out her own Pokédex, Generation Vi Hone Pokédex, and scanned Bunary. Bunary, the rabbit Pokemon. When it senses danger, it perks up its ears. On cold nights, it sleeps with its head tucked into his fur. Pikachu gaped at the brown rabbit Pokemon, his eyes zeroing in until all he could see was her. Bunary's ears perked up and looked towards Pikachu. The two's eyes met, with Bunary getting blush on its cheeks, before pulling up its fur and covering her face shyly. Pikachu gained a blush in its cheeks too. Duo. Looks like someone's Pokemon is in love. Mina cooed teasingly, much to Izuku's snickering and the electric mouse Pokemon scoffing and looking away. Hey. Don't think you aren't part of this, Midori. Huh? Izuku said, confused. Why am I a part of this? It's simple, really. Mina said, smiling teasingly as she leaned towards Izuku. Your Pikachu has clearly inherited his trainer's habits and traits, that is, he has become just as much as a ladies' man, air Pokemon, as you. Izuku blushed heavily and started throwing out cliché lines like it's not like, and you got it all wrong. Meanwhile, a certain Pokemon inside a certain blonde and lightning bolt hair teen's Pokeball started growling, the Pokeball surrounded in dark jealous aura. Fighters ready? Taii asked. Bunary shook herself from her state, Koda nodding, with Ayama nodding as Starmie cried in acknowledgement. Battle begin. Go Bunary. Koda yelled straight away. Bunary complied, bouncing towards Ayama's Starmie quickly. Quick, but you, Minami, are too hasty. Ayama claimed, posing again. Let's stop the Pokemon in its tracks, shall we, Starmie? Sigh. Headbutt. Koda yelled, cutting Ayama's off. Bunary reached the purple starfish and slammed her head onto the Pokemon by its jewel, it crying out pain. Wow, so quick, Sato said. He spent too much time posing and monologuing that his opponent closed the distance fast enough to strike. Tokoyami said. Snapping out of his shock, Ayama quickly ordered, she's close to you, Starmie. Quick, point-blank hydro pump. Starmie failed to comply, its light beeping rapidly as it shook itself. It's flinched, Izuku said. Headbutt does have an estimated 30% chance to flinch its target. And given that it struck straight at its gem, with that much force, it was more likely to occur. Momo added. Nice Bunary. Koda yelled out. Press on with assurance. Bunary's ears glowed dark purple with malicious energy, and slammed them one at a time onto the stunned Starmie's jewel. On the last of the two, Starmie flew back, crying out in pain, more loudly this time. It got back up, much seemed to struggle a bit. Direct hit, Serena yelled. And a super effective attack against a psychic type. It actually did more damage than you think. Iida joined in. Assurance's strength has doubled when the Pokemon has recently been dealt damage, so when it hit Starmie quickly, the effect must have kicked in. If that's the case, I'm actually impressed that Starmie hasn't fainted yet. Kyoka noted. Ayama frowned, though a frown for him was his eyebrows scrunching up. Starmie. Power Gem. Starmie jumped up, creating illuminating gemstones, and fired them at Bunary. Bunary dodged with quick attack and knocked them away with pound. Bunary glowed white before zipping and bouncing around the field, dodging the gemstones. The ones that did get close, Bunary knocked them away with her glowing white ears. Smart and quick thinking, Taii thought. Using an attacking move to dodge an opponent's attacks and using another for defense. Starmie, quick, fire Thunder Wave. Ayama ordered while posing. Starmie spun its body and launched a wave of electricity onto Bunary, the wave colliding with it. Oh no, it got a hit. Uraraka cried out. Minami, now attack quickly with Flash Cannon. Ayama ordered. Starmie's jewel glowed before firing a silver-white blast of energy towards Bunari. Bunari, dodge. Koda yelled. Just before the beam of energy landed, Bunari jumped over the beam, it crashing towards the ground behind it. What? Ayama questioned. But how? It's supposed to be paralyzed. Bunari landed, a few jolts of electricity sparking around its fur, before shaking it off. It looks unaffected, but how? Uraraka questioned. It's the hidden ability Limber. Izuku said. Limber? Serena said confused. It's a hidden ability that prevents paralysis. Izuku explained. Hidden abilities are like rare abilities that few Pokemon can learn, with Limber being one for Bunari. It seems Bunari has that ability, rendering Thunder Wave useless. Bunari, trap it with Ice Beam. Koda ordered. Bunari jumped up and fired a blue lightning bolt full of chilly air, colliding with the Pokemon, the lower half of its body encased in ice. Starmie, get out with Rapid Spin. Bunari get in quickly and finish it with assurance. As Starmie struggled to spin its body to escape its icy prison, Bunari hopped over towards the immobile Pokemon, its ears glowing malicious dark purple again, and slamming it onto Starmie. With the second hit, Starmie flew out of the breaking ice from the impact, sailing over and landing in front of Ayama. It cried weakly before its red jewels started blinking repeatedly. Starmie is unable to battle. Taii announced. Bunari wins. Ayama, release your next Pokemon. As Ayama returned Starmie to its Pokeball in a flash of red energy, the class muttered and praised Koda's strategy and Bunari's surprising power, the only exceptions being a bored Bakugo and an indifferent Todoroki. That was awesome. Izuku praised, eyes like comical stars. That Bunari has a hidden ability and is super strong. It's so cool. Pikachu blushed slightly at Bunari's victory, flapping itself with its tail. Is it getting hot in here, or is just me? Pikachu muttered. Of Taii, he nodded in praise at Koda's and Bunari's teamwork of commands and flawless execution. He watched as Ayama threw another Pokeball, this one opening and revealing a Fluffy. This is going to be more interesting than I expected, he thought with an amused smile. A few matches later. In the end, Koda won his match against Ayama, with only his Bunari being defeated after a tough match with Fluffy, but resulted in a weakened Fluffy to be defeated swiftly by Koda's second Pokemon, Oranguru. He won the fight after a fierce match with Ayama's final Pokemon, a Shiinotic. Later, a few more matches passed by with multiple fierce close matches. Izuku spent the matches analyzing each of his classmates' Pokemon, determining their strengths, weaknesses, and which Pokemon was their strongest and most experienced. He could tell by the agility and style of movement in Mina's muck that it was both their strongest and longest kept Pokemon. Similar observations were with Tsuyu and her Polidid, Shoji and his Grapplite, Sero with his Ariados, and Tokoyami and his cool Corviknight. A notable surprise occurred when Ojiro's Meditite couldn't use Psychic on Higakure's Kecleon, only for a latter successful Force Palm to reveal that Higakure's Kecleon was in fact a disguise as Aura, both Pokemon and trainer, chuckling at everyone's surprised faces at the sight of the rare Pokemon. Izuku noticed Taishi's eyes widened at his aura, Izuku noticing the subtle PAIN. That slipped out for a moment. What was of course the most hilarious moment was Kaminari Sparky giving Pikachu a flirty wink, much to the Pokemon's shudder. In the end, she proved herself in defeating Kyuka's surprising Noibit, but was then defeated by her Loudred. In the end, the victors of their matches included Mina narrowing defeating Sero, Kaminari against Kyuka, Tokoyami besting Shoji, Asui defeating Uraraka, much to the Gravity Girl's dismay, and Kirishima barely managing a win against Sato, the latter's fighting types, especially his Machoke, nearly decimating Kirishima's rock-type Pokemon. With only the strength and defensive power of his Rhyhorn and Onix helped securing victory. Currently, Izuku and the rest watched as Iida and Momo were on their final round. Both of them only had one Pokemon left, the two having a tense and exciting back and forth with the two trying to outsmart the other. Both Pokemon are unable to battle. Taii announced. Students, release your final Pokemon. Momo returned her fainted Tagetic, while Iida returned his down Skarmory, the two Pokemon fainting at the same time. Iida spoke out with I must commend you for your strategy and quick thinking, Yoi Rozo. That final metronym turning into a Flare Blitz was truly a spectacular gamble. Iida, with due respect, that is too much credit. Momo said. You know metronym's choice was completely random. It was a desperate final attack, one that ended with my Tagetic fainting as well. In either case, let us finish this battle to the best of our ability. Iida said. Lucario, come forth. Lucario materialized out of Iida's Pokeball, huffing as it readied into his stance. Taii smirked delightfully at the sight of the Aura Pokemon. This is tense. Serena said. Iida saved Lucario, his strongest Pokemon, for last. Momo's going to have to pull out all the stops to beat him. Uraraka said. Me and Minnie barely managed to face him. He is really powerful. Come out, Wartortle. Momo yelled out as she threw her Pokeball. The white light from the ball faded to reveal an indigo-colored Pokemon, with a brown and pale underside shell surrounding its entire chest. Its arms and legs stuck out the shell, standing on 2 legs, its paws equipped with 3 sharp clawed fingers and 3 pointed toes on its feet. A pale blue fur tail stuck out the back, with 2 same-colored fur protruding from the sides of its head, shaped like ears. Its mouth was in a wide smile, with fangs sticking out from both ends, opening its eyes as it cried. Wartortle. The Pokemon cried out. Whoa, another rare Pokemon. Serena yelled excited. And it's a water type too. Asui pulled out her Pokédex, Generation 3 Hone Pokédex, and scanned the set water type Pokemon. Wartortle, the turtle Pokemon, and the evolved form of Squirtle. Its large tail is covered with rich thick fur that deepens in color with age. The scratches on its shell are evidence of this Pokemon's toughness in battle. Is this one of the rare Pokemon that Mr. Taii said you guys got, Midoriya? Tsu asked Izuku. Yeah. Izuku said. After I got mine, Momo showed me her Pokemon, including a Squirtle she got as a reward. Ha, it's almost startling to see it evolve so fast. Lucario, strike quickly with Force Palm. Iida ordered. Lucario zoomed towards Wartortle, his right paw glowing with blue, or fire. Wartortle, Iron Defense. Momo commanded. Lucario reached the water type and slammed his ore-powered palm into it, causing a burst of blue fire, only for it to clear, and reveal Lucario only attacking a shell that glowed in a metallic sheen. Now attack with Brick Break. Momo ordered again. Wartortle head and limbs popped out and shot towards the motionless Lucario, striking its shin with a glowing white fist. Lucario cried out in pain at the super effective damage. That's a strong hit. Higakure cheered. She focused on defense, knowing that Lucario would be faster and stronger. Tokoyami said. And with Lucario so close and his defense protecting him from that attack, she had Wartortle counterattack with a super effective attack. Lucario get out of there and strike from afar with Shadow Ball. Lucario shook himself off and jumped out before Wartortle could strike again with another Brick Break. Lucario drew his palms together and created an orb of shadowy energy, and fired it at Wartortle. Evade with Rapid Spin. Momo yelled, Wartortle complying by retracting his body once more, this time spinning like a top, and zipping away from the shadowy orb. Keep firing. Lucario complied with Iida's orders by launching more volleys of shadowy orbs at Wartortle, who spun away from the attacks, with only a couple glancing off his sides. As it neared the now landed Lucario, Iida ordered quick, strike with Power-Up Punch. Lucario's fist glowed with a reddish-orange glow, and struck at the rapid-spinning Pokemon, their colliding attacks causing sparks of energy to shoot out. They look equally as strong. Uraraka noted as she watched. Don't forget that Wartortle's increased defense is keeping him on par with Lucario's own strength. Serena said. However, Lucario glowed in a reddish glow and started pushing back against Wartortle, until ultimately sending the Pokemon flying backwards, who landed rolling into his stance. Lucario pushed him back. Kirishima noted. Power-Up Punch has the added effect of increasing a Pokemon's attack stats. Ojiro informed. His power boost gave Lucario enough strength to push Wartortle back. Lucario strike with Power-Up Punch. Iida yelled. Lucario's fist glowing reddish-orange once more and launching towards Momo's Pokemon. Wartortle, dive. Momo yelled. Wartortle suddenly dived into the ground and disappeared into the ground in a slash of water, Lucario's strike whiffing at the now vanished Pokemon. What? Kaminari yelled. I didn't know you could use dive on land. I don't know why you didn't. Kyoko retorted. Pokemon are magical creatures that we still don't know full well enough with our science. It's best not to think too hard on logic when it comes to them. Lucario searched for the hidden Pokemon, before Iida ordered Lucario, use your warrior to find it. Lucario nodded, bringing his right palm over his heart, closed his eyes, and hummed, his teardrop-like ears rising up as it exerted his aura over the battlefield. Izuku flinched and rubbed his aching head as the same ringing sensation occurred. Taii noticed from afar, his focus momentarily off the battlefield, noting the green-haired student with a serious expression. Meanwhile, Lucario sensed the battlefield and sensed the watery blue aura of Wartortle swimming right underneath him. Lucario's eyes shot open and let out a gruff of acknowledgement. Momo's eyes widened in alarm and yelled, Wartortle, get out of there. Iida smiled at the opportunity. Lucario, strike the ground with Power-Up Punch combined with Force Palm. Lucario slammed his palms together, the 2 paws covered in blue orb before roaring and separating his hands, the blue fire combined with the reddish-orange glow. Lucario proceeded to slam his fists into the ground cracking and shooting upwards, as Wartortle blasted out of the ground in a cry of pain. Wartortle landed in a hard thud. Wartortle, are you okay? Momo asked the downed Pokemon. Wartortle groggily got back up, shook himself off and gave a clawed thumbs up in response. Meanwhile, back with the group of students watching, Uraraka noticed Izuku's scrunched up pained face. Deku, are you alright? Uraraka asked, concerned over her classmate's secret crush. Yeah. Izuku grunted out. Just a bit of a headache. Taii, watching from afar, hummed in thought before turning his full attention back to the field. Alright, let's finish this quickly. Momo said. Envelop him in whirlpool. Wartortle glowed low before creating a vortex of water over his head. Lucario quick, destroy it with Aura Sphere. Iida yelled. Lucario attempted to create a sphere of pure aura energy, before winching, the orb of aura vaporizing. Crap, he can't move. He used too many moves simultaneously. Wartortle launched the whirlpool at Lucario, which enveloped him, Lucario spinning around in the watery vortex, disoriented. Lucario, concentrate on your aura. Use Force Palm with your aura and blast the whirlpool away. Iida ordered. Lucario steadied himself in the vortex and focused on his aura into his palms. As they lit in blue flames, Lucario grunted as he gathered more and more aura into his attack, the flames growing larger and brighter. Intriguing. Taii muttered. Lucario's eyes flared open and as he roared, swiping his palms around him, the whirlpool breaking up at the force of the power. The class gaped in awe of the Pokemon's power. So cool. Izuku awed. So manly. Kirishima roared. Lucario raised its head towards his opponent's direction, only to find Wartortle had disappeared. Iida's eye widened in alarm. Did it use dive again? Iida questioned, panic in his voice. Wrong, Iida. Momo smirked in victory. Wartortle, strike down with Brick Break combined with Waterfall. Iida froze at Momo's words. Down. Iida looked up and his eyes widened in panic. Oh no. Lucario above you. Lucario whirled its head above him and noticed Wartortle was above him. Per his trainer's orders, Wartortle was enveloped in water and rode it down like a wave of water, zooming towards the mid-air Pokemon with added speed and its fists glowing white. Crap, he wouldn't be able to escape while in mid-air. Iida though in a panic. Lucario. Aura Sphere. Full power. Lucario roared as it brought his palms together and formed an Aura Sphere, it glowing in power. As Wartortle reached to the Pokemon and struck his fist out, it collided with Lucario's Aura Sphere, creating a large explosion. Momo and Iida braced themselves and turned away from the wind force and exploded out dirt. The group of students did the same, with Izuku holding Pikachu in his arms. As the dust settled, both Wartortle and Lucario were on their knees, a large amount of scratches and bruises on their bodies. The two Pokemon stared challengingly at each other, panting and breathing hard. Suddenly, Lucario's knees buckled and it collapsed into the ground, his eyes replaced by swirls. Taii looked at the downed Pokemon and announced. Lucario is unable to battle. Wartortle wins. The victor of this match is Momo Rozo. Cheers and claps rang from the students, congratulating the two trainers and their Pokemon on a well-fought battle. Izuku felt conflicted throughout the match on whether to cheer for Momo or for Iida, but decided to simply root for their all. In the end, he was happy for Momo's victory, but likewise cheered for Iida for a well-fought match. As the two called their Pokemon and shook hands, Taii came to the students and said, well-fought match, to the both of you, Ms. Rozo and Mr. Iida. I found that final round particularly intriguing. So, class, can you perhaps tell me how Ms. Rozo's Wartortle bested Mr. Iida's Lucario? Before Izuku could raise his hand to answer, he was beaten to the punch by Todoroki. Mr. Todoroki. Taii gestured for the student to proceed. The Rozo won by 3 factors, sir. Todoroki stated. The first was the type advantage in their moves. Iida's Lucario was strong, but he mostly used fighting type moves and a ghost type move against Rozo, all of which only do normal effectiveness. However, while Wartortle's water and normal type moves were similarly effective against Lucario, it also used Brick Break, a fighting type move that was super effective against Lucario's steel typing, giving Wartortle the typing advantage. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Jiro said. And Lucario's other moves that we saw in yesterday's battle training, like Bone Rush, Metal Claw, and Bullet Punch, would have been non-effective against a water type like Wartortle. Taii nodded and gestured for Todoroki to continue. The second was Rozo prioritizing defense and evasion. Todoroki said. Lucario was stronger attack stat-wise, so she prioritized increasing Wartortle's defenses to withstand set attacks, and in using dive required for Lucario to expend more energy to counterattack, leaving him open for a counterattack himself. Which leads to the third reason, counterattacks. The Rozo also focused on striking when Lucario was up close and couldn't escape and attacked with a super effective move, trapped him in a whirlpool due to Lucario's fatigue from using 2 simultaneous moves, and then struck at Lucario when he was open in mid-air with a combined power of 2 moves, one super effective against Lucario, and the other speeding Wartortle down, increasing his momentum along with his downward descent. Taii chuckled and smiled widely. Excellent deduction, Mr. Todoroki. You are 100% accurate. Well done. The students nodded in Todoroki's intelligence and analysis. Serena stared at Todoroki and thought he may be cold and doesn't speak much, but he is in fact really smart, carefully analyzing every part of the fight. He's almost like Izu. Speaking of Mr. Todoroki, I believe that your match is up next, as well as yours, Mr. Midoriya. Taii said. Get to your places and have your Pokemon ready for battle. Sir, what about the field? Kirishima pointed to the field, now completely full of holes and destroyed parts. I think all those battles kind of finished it. Ah, I see what you mean. Taii said. However, there is no need to fret. We actually have some help from one of the teachers, right Cementus? You're right, Taii. Some of the students jumped at the new, sudden voice. They turned to see the new voice and were met with a cinderblock for a man. The new arrival stood at a tall 6'1", his body appeared to be entirely of a block of grey cement, his entire body rectangular, including his long arms and large hands. His eyes were seemingly shut, his lips pulled upwards, and his grey hair tied in a short ponytail. He wore a sleeveless brown suit, yellow stripes along the shoulders and around the waist, an elongated collar, shorts, and grey shoes. Preparing these fields from these destructive battles is my specialty. Ayama. Hero name. Cementus. Quirk. Cement. He can control all forms of cement into wicked shapes and sizes. He often gets called to fix the fields after they get wrecked. Cementus proceeded to repair the field quickly, filling up the holes and destroyed parts of the field, making it look as good as new. I will stand by in case the field needs any more repairs, Cementus said. Nice job, Taii said. Alright, Todoroki, Midoriya, you two are up. Izuku and Todoroki nodded, the two giving each other a determined stare, before Todoroki wordlessly walked to his end of the field. Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder, turning to see Momo smiling, saying, "Good luck, Izuku." "Good luck, Midoriya." Iida joined in. While Todoroki is rather powerful with his quirk, his Pokémon are also not ones to mess with. "It's true," Serena said. His owl and Ninetales practically whooped Piplup and Momo's Togetic, but I know you can win, Izu. You too, Pikachu. Pikachu responded, determined. Before Izuku could respond, the rest jumped in with their own words of encouragement. "Good luck out there, Deku," Uraraka said. "I'm sure you will win." Kick Todoroki's frosty butt. Higakure cheered, waving her invisible arms like a cheerleader. "Good luck, Midoriya," Asui said. "Not to be rude, but you are gonna need it against him." "Do great out there, Midori," Mina cheered. Izuku's eyes welled up in slight tears, before smiling gratefully. "Thanks guys, me, Pikachu, and the rest will do our best." "I'm sure you will, Midori." In fact, Mina said, leaning closer to Izuku, making the green-haired teen back up in blushing confusion. Mina leaned in, her mouth by Izuku's ear and whispered, "Win this, and I might give you a little present." Mina blew in his Izuku's ear. Izuku's face went as red and hot as a fiery Macargo, steam practically sizzling out of his head. "Mina!" Momo yelled scandalized, herself blushing jealously at the action. Serena's eyes twitched, dark jealous lines drooping from her eyes. "Bushido. Please, desist your actions towards our class president at once," Iida yelled, himself blushing from the scandalous act. It is a quite shameful action that clearly is upsetting Midoriya. Uraraka and Higakure stared silently at what occurred, the two growing gloomy as a jealous aura emanated from them. "Calm down you two, I was just teasing." Mina stepped away from Izuku, but not before giving him a not-so-subtle wink, making the green bean blush even more. Asui stared curiously, finger over chin. "Interesting," Ribbit the frog girl thought. Midoriya is clearly not a pervert, yet it seems like all the girls, beside Kyoka, are attracted to him. I wonder if I will too. He is rather adorable, like a baby Scorbunny. Meanwhile, Kyoka raised her eyebrow again at the events that she beheld. Already in school for 3 days and Midoriya is practically the center of attention, especially with the girls. Not that you'll find me going gaga over it, dude. After all words of encouragement were said, and Izuku managed to stop blushing, he and Todoroki stood at opposite ends of the field, staring each other down. Bakugo watched from the sidelines and smirked. "Even if you defeated me, Deku, your Eevee didn't truly win against Kulava," the explosive teen thought. "I can't wait to see that pathetic runt, that shitty spark rat, and whatever third weakling you have get beaten by Icy Hot's Pokemon." "Izuku Midoriya, Shoto Todoroki, I understand that you know the rules by now," Taii stated, before turning to Todoroki. "And Mr. Todoroki, I am aware that you have up to 4 Pokemon in your possession instead of 3, but you will be limited to 3 for this match, understood?" Todoroki nodded in acknowledgement. Izuku meanwhile had his eyes whiten in alarm. He already has 4 Pokemon, he mentally yelled. He must be really skilled and determined to have gone so far. But that doesn't matter. Right now, all that matters is that I beat him. Taii meanwhile looked at the 2 students before him. Shoto Todoroki. Son of the number 2 hero, Flame Hero. Endeavor. Taii thought. Quirk uses both ice and fire, meaning he will likely have Pokemon of either fire, ice, or something similar. Regardless, I am interested in what this boy's bond with his Pokemon is right now, rather than his parentage or quirk. As for Midoriya, Taii looked to Izuku. He was Unezu told me about. The successor to All Might in One for All, his partner, Eevee, can use Heal Pulse on both Pokemon and humans, and he likely is a chosen. I sensed it from the moment I saw him, and his reaction to Lucario using Aura and my necklace are rather obvious tells. Let's see just how much potential this boy and his Pokemon have. Send out your first Pokemon, Taii called out. Todoroki brought out one of his Pokeballs, enlarged it and tossed it up. Go Vulpix. The bowl opened and out of the white energy appeared a small reddish-brown furred fox-like Pokemon. It had large pointed ears, brown eyes, a creamy pale underbelly, and darker brown fur on its paws. On top of its head were 3 curled, banged locks of orange fur, with 6 tails of a similar orange fur, and likewise curled. Ooh, so cute. Kagakure cooed once more. Let's see what the Pokédex says. The invisible girl dug out her Pokédex, female generation 5 dex, and scanned the Pokémon. Vulpix, the fox Pokémon, original variant. It controls balls of fire. As it grows, its 6 tails split from their tips to make more tails. Interesting, Iida said. What is it, Iida? Uraraka asked. Todoroki has an owl and Ninetales, which we saw in the battle training yesterday, and now we see that he has a Vulpix in his possession too. Iida pointed. It makes me wonder why one is evolved into his final form and not the other. It could be a Pokemon that he only recently caught, Mina suggested. Even if that were the case, Vulpix evolves when it comes into contact with a Firestone, Momo said. Todoroki is the son of the number 2 hero, Endeavor, which means he must have access to large amount of wealth. I too doubt that someone as wealthy as Todoroki would not have bought a Firestone easily, and evolved Vulpix into a Ninetales easily, recently captured or not. Izuku watched Vulpix and started analyzing the situation. From what Serena just said, Todoroki has an owl and Ninetales, which means I can't use her against it, Izuku thought. And with 4 Pokemon from him to choose, with Vulpix now revealed, that leaves 2 Pokemon that I have no clue what he has. I just have to hope that his Pokemon are either Ice type or Fire type. You want me to go in, boss? Pikachu asked. No, Pikachu. Izuku mentally responded. If Todoroki is going to bring out his owl and Ninetales, you are the best option against it. Izuku brought out one of his Pokeballs on his belt. Ready, Eevee. Ready? Eevee replied. Izuku proceeded to toss the Pokeball. Eevee, I choose you. The Pokeball opened up and from the white light materialized Eevee, crouched and ready for battle. He's using Eevee right off the bat, Mina said. It could be for the best, Asi said. Todoroki's Ninetales is very dangerous from afar with its special attacks, and Eevee's only shown long-range attack is swift. Fighters ready? Taii spoke. Izuku and Todoroki nodded, determined stares in their eyes, while Vulpix and Eevee nodded too. Battle begin. Eevee charge in with quick attack. Izuku yelled. Eevee complied, running towards Vulpix at super fast speeds, leaving past a trail of white light. Vulpix Fire Ember. Todoroki ordered. Vulpix opened its mouth and fired a barrage of fire embers. Dodge. Izuku ordered, Eevee zipping from side to side, his speed easily dodging the embers. Eevee closed the distance and slammed into the fox-like Pokemon. It's a hit. Kagakure cheered. Vulpix, disable. Todoroki commanded. Vulpix's eyes shined white, a glint of light shining in its brown eyes. Eevee's eyes widened as its speed fell and the trail of white. Shit. Izuku cursed internally. Eevee, sand attack, quickly. Eevee quickly swiped his tail with the ground, kicking up sand and blasting it into Vulpix's eyes. Nice try. Todoroki said, smirking. Vulpix, flamethrower above you. Vulpix, while blinded by the sand, heeded its trainer's command and let out a stream of fire from its mouth, striking its opponent given the cry of pain that followed. Eevee was blasted back, landing in a roll with a few scorch marks on its body, shaking itself from the head. Wait, how did Todoroki know he would attack from above? Sero questioned. Because he already had seen Eevee do that same tactic. Serena answered. From yesterday's battle training. Remember? Oh right, from when Eevee blinded Bakugo's cool lava and used body slam on it from above. Ojiro recalled. Bakugo, silently watching the fight, gritted his teeth as he was once again reminded of his recent defeat. Back to the fight, Izuku frowned. He figured out our plan. Of course, he must have watched Eevee use that move on cool lava from yesterday. Izuku recalled a word of advice from All Might during his 10-month training. Remember, young Midoriya, to never perform the same trick twice. The more you use a single trick, the more easily it will be predicted by a smart opponent. I can't do the same attack again, Todoroki already has that figured out. Izuku thought. And I can't use quick attack because Todoroki disabled it. What do I do? Vulpix, press the attack, flamethrower. Todoroki commanded. Vulpix released another stream of fire towards Eevee. Eevee protect. Izuku quickly yelled. Eevee erected a green bubble over itself, protecting itself from the flames. But as the flames dispersed, along with the bubble, Vulpix appeared right in front of Eevee. What? Izuku yelled confused, before realizing the streak of white behind Vulpix. Its nose quick attack too. Vulpix slammed into Eevee, the evolution Pokemon crying out in pain. Vulpix, attack with Ember. Todoroki ordered. Vulpix quickly fired more fiery embers point blank at Eevee, the evolution Pokemon being pelted over and over. I have to think of something or Eevee is done for. Izuku thought, before his eyes widened before smirking. Eevee, sand attack. Eevee frowned in confusion before realization flashed in its face and nodded. It swept the ground again with its tail, covering the two in a dust cloud of sand. What is he doing? Kaminari questioned. Doesn't he know that Todoroki will expect that again? Bakugo narrowed his eyes in suspicion. Predictable. Todoroki muttered. Vulpix, flamethrower above again. Vulpix complied and fired a stream of fire upwards, parting the sand, and finding Eevee not there. What? Todoroki questioned, his eyes widened in surprise. Wait, where is the little guy? Kirishima questioned too. Look down. Momo said, a knowing smile on her face. The students, along with Vulpix's eyes, looked down to see the dust clearing and showing Eevee sliding under the stream of fire, till it was right below Vulpix. Todoroki's eyes widened in alarm. Vulpix, bring the flamethrower down now. Vulpix attempted to bring down the stream of fire, but... Eevee, tackle! Izuku yelled. Eevee shot upwards and slammed his head onto Vulpix's descending chin, the fire type crying out pain as the stream of fire was cut off. Now jump and use body slam. Eevee sprung himself into the air with its tail, while Vulpix fell down on its backside. Eevee flipped in midair and crashed onto Vulpix's exposed underbelly, gaping in pain at its weak spot. What did I just see? Kaminari questioned. He used sand attack knowing that Todoroki would think he would attack from above again, but instead he attacked from below. Iida summarized. Eevee would then take advantage of Vulpix's disorientation and his momentum to jump and body slam it, causing more damage. Still, how did Midoriya's Eevee know to duck? Siro said. That answer would come from Taii, smirking in delight. I see. Taii thought. He used his bond with his Eevee to convey a mental message before Eevee used the attack. Rather useful skill to not let your opponent know your plan. And while that may be considered cheating to some, I'll allow it since other experienced trainers can replicate the same results with eye contact or hand gestures. Eevee jump out and use swift. Izuku ordered. Eevee complied, jumping from Vulpix and swiping its glowing tail in midair, and releasing a barrage of yellow stars towards the downed Pokémon, pelting it with them. Todoroki growled as Vulpix stood and shook itself off while Eevee landed in a crouch. Clever. He grumbled. He noticed the injuries on Vulpix and Eevee. Both looked to have gotten a lot of damage. One more flamethrowers should do it. Eevee charged with tackle. Eevee rushed towards the fox-like Pokémon once more. Vulpix, keep it away with flamethrower. Todoroki yelled in response. Vulpix fired a stream of fire towards the approaching evolution Pokémon. Izuku smirked. Eevee, Maneuver 13. Todoroki frowned in confusion. Maneuver what? Higakure asked confused. Serena, beside her, widened her eyes in surprise before smiling. As the flames neared Eevee, it suddenly its feet sideways and spun on its heels, sidestepping and spinning away from the stream of fire, with only its tail getting slightly singed. Eevee gritted in the slight pain before launching forwards again towards Vulpix. Whoa, check out those moves. Mina cheered. That must be what Maneuver 13 meant. Eevee used its momentum once again and spun around the attack. Momo analyzed. Izuku, you truly are an intelligent strategist. Maneuver 13. Serena mentally said. It's one of the strategies and plans that Izuku wrote in his hero journal, the Scorched One. He and his Pokémon trained in those maneuvers so well, they practically know them by heart at this point. As Eevee continued running towards Vulpix, Todoroki gritted his teeth and yelled Vulpix, more flamethrower and embers. Vulpix continued firing flamethrowers and embers. Keep going and defend with swift. Izuku ordered back. Eevee would sidestep, roll and spin around more of Vulpix's flamethrowers and embers, while unleashing more waves of swift to block those it couldn't fully dodge. Bakugo's eyes widened at Eevee's movements, thinking back to his infamous encounter with the sludge villain, and Deku dodging the villain's attacks and blinding it. The nerd's using his experience from that time and teaching his Pokémon to move like him. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Fucking Deku. Fucking making me remember me being so weak. Fucking damn it. As Eevee reached Vulpix's place, Todoroki yelled flamethrower. Jump. Izuku yelled. Eevee jumped up as Vulpix fired another flamethrower, it exploding up dust from where it once was. Got you. Todoroki smirked. Oh no, Eevee's stuck in midair. Uraraka yelled. Full power, flamethrower. Todoroki commanded. Vulpix fired a large stream of fire at Eevee. Protect. Izuku yelled. Eevee created another green bubble that blocked the firepower as Eevee descended towards Vulpix. Finish it with takedown. Eevee jumped out of the green bubble and, while covered in a slight white glow, slammed into Vulpix hard, slamming the fox-like Pokémon into the ground. Eevee jumped back, flinching at the recoil damage, before looking back at the downed opponent. Vulpix struggled to rise before it collapsed onto the ground and fainted. Vulpix is unable to battle. Taii said. Eevee wins. Todoroki, bring out your next Pokémon. Alright, Eevee won it. Uraraka cheered. Impressive strategy. Iida said. Using Protect as a surface and jumping out of it was rather risky, but it paid off in Vulpix's defeat. Todoroki made Vulpix expend too much energy with continuous flamethrowers and embers, making it weaker and more easily knocked out by a powerful move. Momo deduce. Nice job, Eevee. Izuku telepathically said to his Pokemon with a nod. You did awesome. Thanks, Izuku. Eevee replied as it walked back to Izuku's side of the field. Couldn't have done it without your strategies. Izuku nodded before looking back to Todoroki as he recalled Vulpix wordlessly. Izuku squinted his eyes as he noticed Todoroki's angry face and his mouth moving. Though Izuku couldn't hear, Izuku frowned, something in his gut telling him that what Todoroki said wasn't exactly encouraging or comforting to the fire type. Todoroki would pull out another Pokeball and tossed it. Ninetales, show him how it's done. The Pokeball opened and out from it stood a majestic-looking Pokemon. This Pokemon too looked fox-like, but instead was taller, longer, its fur pale, light blue, like the color of fresh snow. It stood on slender legs upon 3 toed paws that were colored like white snow. Its head consisted of a pointed snout, large blue eyes, pointed ears with tufts of white fur in front of its ears, a crest of wispy, flowing blue fur on the top of its head, that was colored white at its ends, and, by the front of its body and neck, had a small thick wispy mane of fur. And behind it, for a tail, were nice flowing, wispy, and fluffy tails, with the fur closest to the body colored deep blue, the middling part the same pale blue as most of its body, and by the ends colored white. Its howl was what they could only describe as mystical and melodious like the light breeze of winter wind. Amazing. Mina gaped in awe of the creature. I know we already gawked about it yesterday, but seeing it up close is something completely different. Momo brought out her Pokédex, which was a pink feminine voice version of Todoroki's Pokédex, and scanned the majestic creature. Ninetales, the fox Pokemon, Alolan variant, and the evolved form of Vulpix. It creates drops of ice in its coat and showers them over its enemies. Anyone who angers it will be frozen stiff in an instant. Arceus, instant freezing. Sarah muttered. Remind me to never face someone like that when pissed. You think Eevee can beat Ninetales? Uraraka asked Iida, while hugging and rubbing the shivering Assy. I don't know. Iida answered. Eevee looks in bad shape after its fight with Vulpix, so it is definitely at a disadvantage. It probably would be wiser to switch out for another. Assy, why is Uraraka hugging and rubbing you? Mina asked. I mean, I'm not against you gals going at it, but at least wait till you are in private. Firstly, I told you guys to call me Tsu. Asui said, visibly unfazed by Mina's words, unlike Uraraka who blushed and pouted. Secondly, my quirk's nature makes me not used to cold temperatures, and that Ninetales of Todoroki's is already making it really chilly for me. Eevee, still think you can fight? Izuku asked in a serious tone. Yeah. Eevee replied. I'm not backing down against until the end. You get me? Izuku smiled. Loud and clear. Pokemon ready? Taii asked and received nods from the trainers and Pokemon. Battle begin. Eevee, swift. Izuku ordered. Eevee jumped into the air and launched a new wave of glowing stars at the new Pokemon. Dazzling gleam. Todoroki ordered. Ninetales would comply and raise its head and howl, shining blindingly, and several blasts of light would lash out, destroying the stars and striking at Eevee, sending the evolution Pokemon flying. Eevee. Izuku yelled in worry. Eevee would crash and tumble onto the ground before shakily getting back up. Eevee's body would suddenly glow purple. Disables worn off. Eevee would inform Izuku. Just in time, Eevee used quick attack and get in close. Izuku ordered. Eevee nodded and ran towards the Alolan variant in a trail of white light. Icy wind. Todoroki commanded, Ninetales complying by releasing a chilling blast of cold wind towards Eevee. The evolution Pokemon would run into the chilling wind, slowing down and flinching in pain of the magical attack. Eevee's slowing down. Sato noted. Icy wind has the added effect of making its target speed lowered. Serena said worryingly. Then this, blizzard. Todoroki said. Izuku's eyes whitened at the mention of the powerful ice-type move, and yelled Eevee, protect. Ninetales howled and glow icy blue before unleashing howling blizzard towards Eevee, who would protect itself with the defensive move. The students would take cover of the powerful maelstrom, more of Izuku's group huddling and protecting the shivering Assy. Izuku would shield Pikachu from the attack, while Taii appeared unaffected the blizzard, instead narrowing his eyes at the battle through the wind. Clear sight. Taii muttered under his breath, his eyes glowing blue. The world around the man turned blue, the area of the field, the students, and Pokemon becoming highlighted and colored in blue in Taishi's eyes. He could make out Eevee around a green bubble of protect. He looked towards Todoroki and Ninetales and noticed Todoroki's mouth move. The wind started dying down as Ninetales opened its mouth and created an orb of multicolored rainbow energy. I see. Taii said. Clever plan, young Todoroki. Izuku would feel the winds of blizzard dying down, and started to look before a flash of rainbow light shined, and the sound of a large explosion sounded. Eevee. Izuku yelled. As the winds of blizzard truly died down, Izuku and the students found Eevee on the floor, his eyes replaced by swirls. Eevee. Izuku yelled again in shock. Eevee is unable to battle. Taii announced. Ninetales is the winner. Midoriya, send out your second Pokemon. Ah, poor Eevee. Uraraka muttered. He didn't even manage to land a single move on Ninetales. While I respect what appeared to be Eevee's drive to continue fighting, it seems in the end that Eevee's low health was its downfall. Iida said. But wait, how did he get knocked out? Higakure asked. I heard Izuku yell protect and I saw Eevee use protect before the blizzard enveloped him. Either Eevee was too injured to sustain protect and got hit by the blizzard, knocking it out, or Todoroki had Ninetales use another move that caught Eevee off guard. Momo deduced. Izuku wanted to rush down and pick the Pokemon up, but kept calm and returned Eevee to his Pokeball. You okay, Eevee? Izuku asked the returned Eevee. I'm fine. Eevee managed to groan out. I'm sorry, Izuku. When the blizzard started dying down and I let down protect and I got hit by a really strong rainbow beam. Aurora beam. Izuku muttered. With the stab boost in your already injured state, it must have been too much. Rest easy, Eevee. You did amazing. Well, Dusty, I'll go get you some payback. Pikachu said. You wanna go in, Pikachu? Izuku asked. I'm the perfect choice. Pikachu replied. I'm arguably your strongest Pokemon, and I wager that this Pokemon's got some psychic-type moves that will be bad against the new girl. Izuku thought it over before nodding and saying alright. Pikachu, you're up. Izuku threw his arm out, and Pikachu ran up it and jumped out onto the field. He's sending out Pikachu. Kyoka said. I've been wondering just what the Pokemon can do. She brought out her own Pokédex, Generation 7 Pokédex, and scanned the Pikachu. Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon, and the evolved form of Pichu. Pikachu that can generate powerful electricity have cheek sacs that are extra soft and super stretchy. Izuku must definitely be serious. Serena said. Pikachu is pretty much Izuku's strongest Pokemon. If it's anything like Kaminari's, then that isn't saying much. Zero joked. Hey, leave Sparky out of this. Kaminari yelled at the Tate Quirk user. Go beat them, Pikachu. Show these degenerates what Pikachus can do. On cue, Kaminari's Pokeball opened up to reveal a still injured Sparky. Sparky? Kaminari questioned, confused and shocked. Why are you out of your Pokeball? You're injured. Pick up cop pick a pee. Sparky yelled, almost pleadingly towards Kaminari, pointing out the field with Izuku's Pikachu. You want to watch Pikachu fight that badly? Kaminari interpreted and asked. Sparky gave him pleading eyes. Not the eyes. Kaminari groaned. Okay, fine, but don't stress yourself out too hard. Sparky smiled and nodded, walking slowly into Kaminari's arms to watch the fight. Battle begin. Taii yelled. On with quick attack. Izuku yelled. Pikachu immediately zoomed towards Ninetales, moving at super fast speeds with the white trail behind it. Whoa, that Pikachu's really fast. Ojiro noted with white eyes. Icy wind. Todoroki commanded, Ninetales complying with another breeze of chilling wind common towards the rapidly approaching Pikachu. It looks like it's going the same way as the last fight. Tokoyami said. Wait for it. Serena said with a smirk. Pikachu jump up with your tail. Izuku yelled. Pikachu suddenly flipped and landed on its tail before springing upwards, dodging the blast of icy wind. Ninetales, blast it down with the roar beam. Todoroki ordered. Ninetales released a rainbow-colored blast of energy towards the mid-air Pikachu. Blast through it with thunderbolts. Izuku ordered himself. Pikachu. Pikachu yelled as he sparked in yellow electricity and fired a powerful lightning bolt towards Ninetales. Both attacks collided and struggled against each other for a straight second before the thunderbolt blasted through the aurora beam, striking right on Ninetales. What? Todoroki cried out in shock. Speaking of which, Ninetales howled in pain and was blasted backwards as it landed and slid on its side, sparks of residual electricity jolting around its body. What the Arceus just happened? Kaminari yelled. That was the most powerful thunderbolt I have ever seen. It blasted through that aurora beam in a second. In Kaminari's arms, Sparky blushed furiously, and her eyes were replaced once again with hearts. As much as it makes me want to hurl saying this, but Deku's Pikachu is the strongest one of its kind I have ever seen. Bakugo said. The shitty nerd said that when it was still a wild Pokemon, it saved him an Eevee from a horde of Spearows and even a few Fearows, electrocuting and defeating them all with one single thunderbolt. Seriously? Kirishima questioned before smiling. Man, Midoriya chose one manly Pokemon to catch. Taishi's eyes widened at the power of the Pikachu, before a feeling rang through his head. He followed said feeling and looked at Pikachu's tail, more specifically, the weird familiar marking on its tail. Taishi's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. It can't be. He gasped, touching at the necklace that hung by his neck. Pikachu landed, smirking as his cheek sparked. He cracked his neck and raised his hand towards Todoroki, and made a bring-it-on gesture. Todoroki gritted his teeth, angered by the gesture. As Ninetales got back up, Todoroki yelled Fire Ice Beam. Ninetales opened its mouth and fired 3 bolts of freezing, blue lightning towards Pikachu. Dodge and build up speed, Pikachu. Izuku yelled. Pikachu dodged the bolts as they collided to ground he stood, the ground freezing where he once stood. Pikachu ran up to Ninetales, while Ninetales continued firing ice beams at him. As he got closer, Todoroki yelled Moonblast. Ninetales shined in silvery moonlight before creating an orb out of the same energy and firing it at Pikachu. Electro Ball, Izuku ordered. Pikachu flipped into the air, his tail gathering electricity till it formed into an orb out of electricity. Pikachu. Pikachu hurled the orb at the Moonblast, the two clashing before both exploded, creating a burst of smoke and dust. Pikachu landed and crouched, waiting for orders and an attack. But from the dust, Todoroki's voice called out, Dazzling Gleam. The smoke was blasted away with shining light, rays of light striking and blasting Pikachu back. Izuku gritted his teeth and yelled, Get in close with quick attack and use Iron Tail. Pikachu super sped towards the now visible Ninetales, his tail starting to glow white, until Todoroki yelled once more, Blast back with Dazzling Gleam. Ninetales would once more shine brightly and release rays of light that sped towards Pikachu. Pikachu jumped, his tail turning metallic, and slammed and attacked a few rays of light, before he was overwhelmed blasted back again. Ice Beam. Todoroki continued ordering, Ninetales firing the attack in compliance. Dodge and use Thunderbolt. Izuku commanded. Pikachu dodged the bolts of ice again, and fired another Thunderbolt at the Alolan variant. Dazzling Gleam. Todoroki ordered again. Ninetales shined brightly for the third time, the rays of light destroying the Thunderbolt. He's just using the same move over and over. Kirishima yelled outrage. Be a real man and do something else, you spammer. Regardless of how many times he's using it, it's still a viable strategy. Momo said. With his multitude of special attacks, he can match Pikachu's attacks and keep him back. Still, come on Deku. Uraraka muttered. Find a way to break through. Izuku meanwhile frowned and thought. This is bad. With Dazzling Gleam and Moonblast, he can match Pikachu's attacks and push him back, and he can still attack Pikachu with Ice Beam and Aurora Beam, and it's only a matter of time before he decides to fire another Blizzard. How? How can I break through his long-ranged attacks? Flashback. Pikachu was suddenly struck by Hulucha's glowing fist, Pikachu crying out in pain. Now, body press. Toshinori yelled. Hulucha flew up and crashed onto Pikachu's body chest first, and slammed Pikachu into the ground. Hulucha jumped backwards and landed while posing with his arms out. Pikachu tapped the ground with its paw, panting. Timeout. Izuku interpreted Pikachu's action. I suppose we can take a break. Toshinori said with a chuckle. Maybe wait till Pikachu's imprint isn't on the ground anymore. True to his jest, Pikachu's actual outline of his body was imprinted into the ground underneath him. Izuku, All Might, and the two Pokémon sat and ate amidst the trash heap that was Dagobah Beach, several months' worth of training, making the once towering mountains of garbage into significantly lowered mini-hills. Izuku ate from his energy bar, while All Might drank some water from his bottle. Izuku thought for a minute before saying, Hey All Might. Yes, young Midoriya. All Might responded. I was wondering, how did you and Hulucha do that? Izuku asked. I mean, get past Pikachu's special attacks. They're almost impossible to get past. Ah, I see. Well, I suppose that I should tell you of a little technique that me and my Pokémon have been developing. Toshinori said. I call it counter shields. Counter shields. Izuku repeated the word confused. Pikachu and Hulucha sat nearby eating a couple of orange berries. Yes. All Might said. They're a technique where a Pokémon uses a normally offensive or even status-affecting move, and uses it as a defensive shield. For example, Hulucha. All Might called out towards the wrestling Pokémon, which stood up and waited for his trainer's orders. Show Izuku what I mean. Perform the Feather Dance Shield. Hulucha nodded before jumping into the air and started performing the move Feather Dance, but instead of launching the mass of feathers, he instead started spinning in mid-air, the magically appearing feathers spinning around with him, until Hulucha became a rapidly spinning mass of thick feathers. All Might buffed up and threw a can at high speeds at the feather's shield, the can bouncing off of the shield. Hulucha stopped spinning and burst out of the feathers, making a pose. As Hulucha landed and All Might debuffed, Izuku looked on with wide, shocked eyes. After a few seconds of silence, All Might frowned and waved his hands in front of Izuku. Young Midoriya. That's incredible. Izuku yelled, bringing out a notebook from out of nowhere, and started writing notes. This is groundbreaking information. This can change the very nature of Pokémon battling. He used a normally used opponent status affecting move, and used it as a protective shield like Protect. But how is it so strong? Maybe it has to do with the spinning and the rate and speed of his spins. Or maybe it's because Feather Dance's attack lowering effect. No, that only works on opponent Pokémon. But, did it lower his own attack stat? Or he did it absorb and decrease the attack power of the object thrown at him? No, it also blocked Pikachu's Thunderbolt, which is a special attack. Mumble mumble mumble. All Might and the staring Pokémon sweat dropped at the Izuku's antics. There he goes again. Pikachu chuckled. I don't think I will ever find out where he grabs those notebooks of his from. All Might thought. Deciding on snapping him out, All Might snapped his fingers in front of Izuku's face, snapping the teen back to reality. Again, you might want to work on that, All Might said, much to Izuku's embarrassment. And to answer the questions that I could understand from that mumble stream of yours, it doesn't have to only be things like status-affecting moves, but also special attacking moves, like Flamethrower or even Thunderbolt. How it works depends on the move and style, but it can work as a deterrent to physical attacking moves and even range-based attacks. So I could do the same with my Pokémon, Izuku said. Like with Pikachu. All Might nodded. It will take a lot of work and practice, but I know for a fact that you too can do it. The key to the counter shield is imagination. Flashback over. Izuku's eyes whitened as the memory flashed in his mind before smiling. Pikachu. Izuku yelled, getting Pikachu attention. All Toshinori and Halacha. Pikachu looked confused for a minute before realization flashed in his eyes and smiled, giving his trainer a thumbs up. What did Izzy say? Kagakure asked. Toshinori and Halacha. Do you know anything about this, Serena? Serena shook her head, likewise confused with what Izuku said. Get in close with quick attack, Izuku ordered. And get him to use Ice Beam on the ground in front of him. Izuku further ordered telepathically. Pikachu nodded, zooming towards Todoroki's Ninetales with quick attack. Blasted away with the Roar Beam. Todoroki ordered. Ninetales would fired more Roar Beams, them exploding the ground as continued Pikachu dodging them. Suddenly Pikachu stopped in his tracks and proceeded to stretch his face out. Ha! Was the general reaction of the group. Pikachu continued stretching his face and making silly faces, sticking out his tongue at the majestic-looking Pokémon, much to the growing annoyance and ire of both the opposing trainer and Pokémon. What is he doing? Iida questioned. Tahahahaha. Bakugo yelled. Oh, maybe shitty Deku taught that Sparker something good after all. Ahahaha. Todoroki fumed in anger, tiny sparks of fire flickering from his left side before snapping. Ninetales, freeze him with Ice Beam. Ninetales, gladly, obliged, and then fired another Ice Beam towards Pikachu, who expertly dodged the attack, and ran back towards Izuku. Ninetales, continuing to fire Ice Beam, in a desperate attempt to hit the annoying mouse Pokémon. After Pikachu dodged Ninetales' attack for a while, Izuku yelled, now Electro Ball. Pikachu jumped up and launched another Electro Ball towards Ninetales, who would effectively destroy it with another Moonblast. Was that what Deku was trying to do this whole time? Uraraka questioned. Perhaps, Momo said. Pikachu's taunting and running could have been for Ninetales to waste so much energy on attacking. However, I have a feeling Izuku is up to something else. This is pointless. Todoroki yelled over to Izuku. You are wasting time at this point. Just give up. Your Pikachu can't ever reach Ninetales at this rate. Izuku froze at the familiar words he had heard his whole, before responding with a smirk. That's the thing, Todoroki. If there is one thing about me that you should know, it's that I don't give up. Pikachu rushed with quick attack. Pikachu super speed towards Ninetales. Todoroki sighed annoyed and said, Ninetales, finish this with Moonblast. Ninetales glowed in moonlight and fired another large Moonblast. As it neared Pikachu, Izuku yelled slide. Pikachu suddenly rolled into a slide and slid down the Moonblast, and continued sliding straight towards Ninetales at an abnormally fast pace. Whoa! Kaminari exclaimed. How's that little guy sliding so fast? Serena looked at the ground and her eyes widened. It's the ground. She pointed towards the ground Pikachu slid on, showing it was covered in an icy sheen. It's frozen. Pikachu is sliding on ice. Todoroki overheard, his eyes widened in surprise and anger. Shit. He cursed internally. We were blinded by our anger and didn't notice. Meanwhile the Moonblast continued sailing through the air, making its way towards Izuku. Momo noticed, her eyes widened in fear. Izuku. Look out. Taii noticed too and was about to intervene in alarm, but froze at Izuku's continued smirk. Izuku shifted his body sideways, the Moonblast sailing past him, and exploded behind him in a burst of pink light, all the while shadowing Izuku's form, that was still smirking at Todoroki. The class gaped at the show of confidence from the otherwise normally shy teen. So manly. Kirishima whispered, a tear of manliness shining from his eye. That was so hot. Mina thought, a mad blush on her stupefied face. Erbit. Asui croaked, unbeknownst to even herself with a small blush on her cheeks. That was, whoa. Kagakure muttered, blushing red marks appearing comically where her cheeks would be. You said it, sister. Kyoka agreed with the invisible girl, currently denying that her heart skipped a beat at the action. Oh, my word. Momo gasped out, hand over her rapidly beating heart. Beating fast in both fear and in sudden arousal. Uraraka was left mute, simply staring in awe and a large blush on her drooling face. I have never seen Izu this confident and cool-looking. Serena gaped with a blush. I like it. Bakugo gritted his teeth and growled, once more angered at the attention that shitty Deku was getting. And that set Deku was suddenly acting so proud over what he thought so unnecessarily stupid. Todoroki likewise gritted his teeth in anger at Izuku and yelled, it makes no difference. Ninetales, dazzling gleam. As Ninetales began to glow, Izuku yelled Pikachu, Thunder Shield. Thunder Shield. Mina repeated confused. What move is that? Not one I heard about. Kirishima replied. But now I'm interested. Pikachu, still sliding on Ninetales' ice, sparked in the yellow electricity of Thunderbolt before spinning around and around like a top on its back. Suddenly, the Thunderbolt started spinning around with Pikachu till it formed a bubble of yellow lightning around him. Ninetales fired a dazzling gleam, the rays of light shooting outwards, only to be blocked and even bounce away at the shield of lightning. What? Todoroki and the group of students yelled in surprise and shock. Taii smiled in delightful surprise at the move. He's using that Thunderbolt as a defensive shield to get in close without getting hit by dazzling gleam. Iida gasped in amazement. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Izuku never ceases to amaze. Momo smiled fondly. No, he doesn't. Serena said, smiling fondly and widely too. Sparky meanwhile went absolutely gaga over Pikachu and the technique, her hearts for eyes growing larger. That's so awesome. Kaminari exclaimed, before turning to his own Pikachu. Want to ask Midoriya and Pikachu to teach us that after this. Pika-P. Sparky cried out in agreement. Izuku noticed that Pikachu was nearing the end of the icy trail in front of Ninetales and yelled, now release. Pikachu, prepared, stuck his hand to the solid ground, stopped spinning and launched the Thunder Shield at Ninetales with his tail. The wave of electricity struck the shocked Ninetales, howling in pain. And he tossed the shield of electricity onto Todoroki's Pokémon when he got close, using the defensive technique into an attack as well. Shoji summarized. Impressive. Shake it off and use Blizzard. Todoroki compassed himself and yelled. Ninetales quickly shook itself off and fired another belling blizzard at the Pikachu in front of him. Pikachu stood his ground, gritting his teeth in pain, and attempt to hold his ground. Push through, quick attack and Iron Tail. Izuku yelled. Pikachu, glowing white from quick attack, zoomed and jumped over Ninetales before slamming his metallic tail onto Ninetales' head, slamming into the ground and kicking up dust from the impact. As the dust settled, there stood a scratched up Pikachu standing victorious over a knocked out Ninetales. Ninetales is unable to battle. Taii yelled out. Pikachu is the winner. Okay, that was an awesome fight. Kaminari said. Probably better than Yaoi Rosa's and Iida's. Yeah, and that shielding move blocking Todoroki's attack. Erg, so manly. Kirishima exclaimed. Midoriya is doing well against Todoroki's Pokémon. Iida praised. Yeah, but that last blizzard looks to have done a number on Pikachu. Asui said. The next fight could have Pikachu get knocked out from the start like with Eevee. As Pikachu reached his trainer, Izuku frowned in worry. Pikachu, are you alright? Yeah, I'm alright. Pikachu groaned out. That last attack packed quite a punch. Plus I think the Thunder Shield took a bit out of me. Might want to work on that. Pikachu, you can barely stand up. Izuku said. No, I can keep fighting. Pikachu insisted. Izuku frowned and thought before saying. No, I can't let you go on like this. You will just get unnecessarily hurt in the next round like Eevee. You have to take a break. But no exceptions. Izuku yelled, his eyes stern and determined. Pikachu was taken aback by Izuku's fierceness in his voice. Guess all that training with All Might and Serena and us really did make him more confident. Can barely recognize the old shy timid kid that was always picked on. Yet he's still the same selfless kid as always. Pikachu thought, chuckling. Alright, I'll give. But your mom better give me some of that top tier Pokemon food. Izuku smirked and turned to Taii. Mr. Taii, Pikachu can't fight anymore. Please allow him to no longer compete. Taii was momentarily surprised at the action, before smiling and nodding in understanding. Izuku Midoriya has forfeited Pikachu, and will no longer be viable to fight. Wait, what? Higakure questioned. What is he doing? He has the advantage. He can just recall Pikachu and his third Pokemon, and he could win easily. He's putting his Pokemon's needs over his own. Serena said. From the time I have known him, he is extremely selfless, and would do anything for those he cares for, even putting his chances of victory away for his Pokemon. Indeed. Momo said. From his looks, he seems to feel guilty over having Eevee fight Ninetales. He must not want Pikachu to suffer the same fate. Well, I guess that makes sense. Mina said. Still think that it's a little unnecessary. Izuku removed the Pokeball on his necklace and returned Pikachu into it. Back in this confining, trapping hellhole you guys think is comfortable. Pikachu communicated from inside the Pokeball. Yeah, I know, you hate it, you're claustrophobic, don't worry, it will only be for a short while. Izuku muttered in response. Meanwhile, Todoroki was surprised as well at the sudden decision, but kept his cool and recalled Ninetales, wordlessly. He then pulled out another Pokeball from his belt and tossed it out, finished the Darmanitan. From the Pokeball popped out a large squatted ape-like Pokemon, its large fists pounding onto the ground in front of it. The Pokemon was coated in white, snowy fur with blue skin underneath the fur, shown in its small feet, its strong, large hands and its exposed part of his face. His arms were as large as the Pokemon's main body, while its legs were short and almost stubby by comparison. Most of his face was covered in the snowy white fur, with his mouth covered in a thick amount of white fur that made it look like a white beard, while the top of its head had a large snowball that looked like an afro. The Pokemon also had large blue eyes and icy crystals sticking out of its thick fur, with 2 on his chest and 3 on its afro. Another regional variant, Izuku yelled in surprise. Kyuka scanned the Pokemon with her Pokédex, the Pokédex reading Darmanitan, the Zen Charm Pokemon, Britannian variant, and the evolved form of Darumaka. Though it has a gentle disposition, it's also very strong. It will quickly freeze the snowball on its head before going in for a headbutt. A rather fitting Pokemon for Todoroki, Iida said. What? You mean because of their ice similarity? Zero asked. No, like regular Darmanitan, Britannian Darmanitan also had an alternative Zen mode, one where their typing is changed to ice and fire type. Iida responded. Oh, so like both his ice and fire type quirks. Kyuka said in realization. Quite convenient of a Pokemon to catch for him. Well, looks like I only have one Pokemon left. Izuku mentally said. You ready? Absolutely. Izuku's third Pokemon replied mentally. Izuku pulled out his last Pokeball and tossed it into the air. Come on out, Combusken. Out of the tossed Pokeball, popped out a bipedal chicken-like Pokemon. The Pokemon's upper half of its body was covered in yellow feathers, while its lower half was colored orange, its 3 front tooth and 1 back toe talons colored dark gray, with sharp white claws sticking out, and its short pointed tail likewise colored orange. It had long, yellow feathered arms that ended with open palms and 3 sharp claws, while its length eyes were thick and well developed. Its head was roundish, a 3-feather crest on top of its head that was relatively smaller than usual, a short wide orange beak, and orange eyes. Combusken. The Pokemon cried out as it entered the field. So that's Midoriya's third Pokemon, Asui said. And his rare one too. Asui brought out her own Pokédex and scanned the bird Pokemon. Combusken, the young fowl Pokemon, and the evolved form of Torchic. Combusken toughens up its legs and thighs by running through fields and mountains. This Pokemon's legs possess both speed and power, enabling it to dole out 10 kicks in 1 second. Yeah, Momo, Serena, you two know Midori the longest. Was this one Midori's reward Pokemon for placing first in the entrance exam? Mina asked. Yeah, it is. Serena answered. When I first hung out with Izuku, he had Eevee and Pikachu following him everywhere, but never did I see him with a Combusken until a week or so after the entrance exam. When I invited Izuku to my home to hang out, I showed him my Pokemon and he his, including his recently rewarded Torchic. Momo jumped in. I was actually quite surprised how quickly he and Torchic grew friendly with each other. Me and Wartortle, when he was a Squirtle, were together longer, and we still had some problems. I believe that just shows Midoriya's character, Iida said. A friendly and kind-hearted soul that is easy to become friends with. Well, obviously, I mean look how we all became friends with him and each other so fast, Uraraka said. The group thought over their surprisingly short time as friends, and yet grew to become rather close to each other, all thanks to that lovable green bean and his infectious spirit and smile. Ready for your first real match, Combusken? Izuku telepathically communicated. Remember, this isn't going to be like training with All Might, Serena, or Momo. I was born ready. Combusken replied, her high feminine voice sounding pumped up. I have been itching for a good fight. Fighters ready? Taii asked, to the nods of both trainers and Pokemon. Final battle begin. Combusken, start things up with Flamethrower. Izuku yelled. Combusken complied, shooting a stream of fire towards the Zen Charm Pokemon. Defend with Rock Tomb, Todoroki ordered. Darmanitan brought its hands together, magically forming a glowing, large rock, before firing it onto the ground in front of it. It struck the ground, rapidly forming a wall of boulders, the flames of Flamethrower striking the rock, and dispersing away from Darmanitan safely. Now Rock Slide, Todoroki commanded. Darmanitan roared as several magical rocks appeared above Combusken and started falling down towards it. Dodge with Aerial Ace, Izuku yelled. Combusken's outline glowed bluish-white and zoomed out of the way of falling rocks at incredible speeds, and making its way towards Darmanitan. Stop it with Rock Tomb, Todoroki yelled, Darmanitan firing another magically forming boulder, and then launching it towards the approaching Combusken. Destroy it with Double Kick, Izuku ordered. Combusken jumped towards the approaching boulder, angled and twisted her body, till its glowing white foot struck the oncoming boulder. The boulder magically grew in size. The Combusken kicked the boulder with another powerful kick, shattering it into pieces. Now attack with Flame Charge, Izuku yelled. Combusken was enveloped in flames and shot towards Darmanitan at startling speeds. Just before it reached him, Todoroki yelled Sand Headbutt. Darmanitan's snowball afro glowed shining blue. The two Pokemon collided, pushing against each other until they were pushed back by an explosion of energy. Darmanitan yelped in pain before ceasing his pushback by digging his hands into the ground. Combusken flipped in midair and landed on her feet. Combusken, you alright? Izuku asked. Combusken chirped and pumped her hand in the air in response. Darmanitan looked back at his trainer, who stared wordlessly at him, yet the two nodded in mutual understanding. Todoroki continued the fight by yelling, "Now avalanche." Darmanitan roared and raised his hands in the air, a large amount of dense snow and ice, magically appearing over Combusken's head. Darmanitan brought his hands down, the snow following suit and falling straight down towards the young foul Pokemon. "Defend with flamethrower," Izuku ordered. Combusken raised her head into the air and fired a stream of fire, destroying the snow and ice in an explosion of steam and smoke. Just as Combusken looked back towards her opponent, Darmanitan was right next to her. "Brick break," Todoroki yelled. Darmanitan's large fist glowed white before slamming it into Combusken's gut. Combusken gawked in pain before being punched back, tumbling onto the ground before getting back up. "Press on with more brick breaks," Todoroki ordered. "Counter and fight back with continuous double kicks," Izuku ordered too. Combusken's feet and Darmanitan's large fists glowed white before jumping towards each other. The two would clash, dodge and attack with numerous kicks and punches, with Combusken mostly dodging with its fast speed, and Darmanitan blocking with his large thick-furred arms and fists. "It's like an old-fashioned street fight," Kirishima yelled excited. "Erg, this is getting me so pumped up." Combusken's speed and swift kicks help evade and attack swiftly, yet Darmanitan's powerful strength and defense allow it to easily block the attacks, and counter with those heavy punches. Ojiro deduced. "Yeah, and those two poke dudes are so strong. So manly," Kirishima yelled. "Dude and a girl," Koda muttered out. "Wait, what?" Kirishima did a double take and asked Koda confused. "Dude and a girl," Koda responded nervously. "Midoriya's Combusken is female." "Whoa, you can tell?" Sero asked. "How?" "Those feathers cresting on Combusken's head." Koda pointed to the fighting Pokemon. "The males have longer feathers on the top of their heads, while the female have them shorter, around the same length as that. So Midoriya's Combusken is female." "Whoa, that's so cool that you can know just by looking." Uraraka praised the normally silent teen. "You were really smart." Koda responded by nervously hiding his face in his hands. "Yeah, and go Combusken," Mina cheered. "Show those guys some real girl power." "Enough blabbing and focusing too much about what the fucking hell what that Pokemon has in his pants," Bakugo roared annoyed. "Just shut up and watch the two fight to the death." "While vulgar and over-exaggerated, that is rather wise and progressive of you, Bakugo," Momo said. "I just don't give a fuck about if my opponent is a guy, a girl, or even some fucking unknown whatsoever," Bakugo repeated. "If they are my foe, they are going down." Darmanitan punched with his right fist, Combusken blocking the punch with her crossed arms. Combusken kicked upwards with her right foot, with the ape-like Pokemon blocking the hit with his left arm, Combusken's leg strength bringing the arm upwards. But Darmanitan swiftly brought his left arm downward and circled upwards to deliver an uppercut to Combusken's chest, launching her into the air. Combusken quickly flipped and corrected herself in mid-air before diving and striking the Zen Charm Pokemon straight in the face with her left foot, Darmanitan being pushed back. "Whoa, that went so fast," Uraraka said, awed at the intense fight. "What happened?" When Combusken kicked Darmanitan's arm upwards, it quickly used the momentum of the attack, the gravity of its heavy arms, and its own arm strength to bring his arm downwards, only to bring it upwards to attack. Iida explained. "It used its own weight, momentum, and strength to power its attack." Momo jumped in. Afterwards, Izuku's Combusken used his powerful legs to launch itself towards Darmanitan, to deal a heavy blow with its own falling speed and leg strength. "Attack!" Izuku and Todoroki yelled simultaneously. The two's feet and fists, respectively, glowed white again and charged at each other, once again striking, blocking, and dodging each other's attacks. Darmanitan would let out a powerful haymaker, Combusken sidestepping away from it before delivering powerful upward kick to his face. Darmanitan growled in pain before shaking the hit and quickly striking hard at Combusken's gut, launching the flightless avian Pokemon away. Combusken would slide till it stopped, then rushing towards the ape-like Pokemon, Darmanitan rushing towards her as well by his arms. The two would clash with a powerful kick and punch, the two contesting each other's strength, till they were both pushed back. "They're so equally strong," Kagakure said. "This shows just how powerful and how hard Todoroki must have trained the Darmanitan to go up against a Pokemon with a type advantage," Shoji said. "He also taught his Pokemon moves to counter against super effective types," Tokoyami added. "Like Rock Slide and Rock Tomb for fire types and Zen Headbutt for fighting types." "Charge, Combusken!" Izuku yelled as Combusken rushed towards Darmanitan. "Rock Slide!" Todoroki yelled once more. Darmanitan roared and unleashed more falling rocks onto the approaching Combusken. "Dodge with Flame Charge!" Izuku yelled. Combusken was once more cloaked in fire and dodged and sped away from the falling debris, suddenly zooming towards Darmanitan even faster. "Whoa, he is getting faster!" Mina yelled excited. "Flame Charge has the added effect of boosting a Pokemon's speed," Asui said. "Midoriya must be wanting for Combusken to close the distance between the two quickly. Block his path with Avalanche," Todoroki commanded. Darmanitan once more created a hail of snow and ice, and brought it down in between himself and the quickly approaching Combusken. Burn through, flamethrower. Izuku ordered. Combusken, still running, breathed a powerful stream of fire, easily burning a hole through the ice and snow. Protect with rock tomb. Todoroki quickly yelled. Darmanitan forming more magical rocks and tossing them in front of him, again the boulders dispersing the flames. Barrier lace. Izuku continued commanding. Combusken glowed bluish-white and super sped through the hole made and over the rocks with its speed. Before Todoroki could issue a command, Combusken would jab its clawed paw into Darmanitan's gut, before unleashing an uppercut, and followed up with a swift downward kick. Point blank, flamethrower. Izuku yelled. Combusken jumped off Darmanitan and fired a stream of fire on the stunned ice type. Direct attack. Uraraka cheered. Is it over? Sato said. Strong as it is, that ice type got hit with both fighting type moves and a fire type attack. Suddenly, a shape moved in the flames, surprising the still firing Combusken. Zen headbutt. Todoroki yelled. A fast object zoomed out of the flames and crashed into Combusken, the firefighting type crying out in pain of the psychic type attack. It was sent flying before landing, holding its gut in pain. The group were able to get a good look at the figure that jumped out of the flames, and it looked different than the Darmanitan from before. It resembled a snowman with 2 large snowballs for a body. The bottom half had 2 white dots for eyes with red marking resembling a domino mask over its eyes, large spiky white teeth, its 2 icy crystals on its stomach now changed into 2 yellow ovals outlined in orange-red, and 2 white-orange hands by its side, sticking out like wings. Its top head had 2 yellow eyes, outlined in orange-red as well, a warped twisted black line for a smile, and a fiery mohawk on top. It roared in anger, spewing flames out of its mouth randomly. What is that? Kaminari asked confused. Is it the same Darmanitan? I think it is. Kyoka said. I think that's a Spartanian version of its Zen mode. Kyoka brought out her Pokédex once more and scanned the new form of Darmanitan. Darmanitan, Britannian variant, Zen mode. Darmanitan takes this form when enraged. It won't stop spewing flames until its rage has settled, even if its body starts to melt. This Pokemon's typing has changed from Soul Ice type to Ice and Fire type. Darmanitans only take this form when their health is low, meaning Combusken's constant attacks and super effective damage must have awakened its Zen form. Momo explained. Come on, Izu. Serena said. He's on his last legs. Finish it quickly. Combusken, attack with flamethrower. Rock slide. Darmanitan quickly roared, creating more falling rocks at Combusken. Combusken quickly dodged the rocks, yet was having more trouble than before, a couple rocks striking at it. It got faster when it changed forms. Izuku said, frowning in worry. Kick them apart with double kick and shadow claw. Combusken retaliated, its feet glowing white and kicking the rocks into pieces, while his claws gained a shadowy aura around it and slashed them apart. While it's distracted, rock tomb. Todoroki ordered. As the last of the rocks were getting destroyed, Darmanitan fired rock tomb at the distracted Pokemon, colliding and trapping it in the rocks. Combusken, get out of there. Izuku yelled in worry. Now attack with Zen headbutt. Todoroki press on with orders. Darmanitan quickly zoomed towards the trapped Pokemon, slamming through the rocks and into the defenseless bird with a shining blue body. And finish it with overheat. Todoroki commanded. Darmanitan quickly opened its mouth and released a massive blast of fire at the stunned Pokemon, blasting it backwards towards Izuku. Combusken crashed in a thud, its body covered in scratches. Arceus, that thing is fighting back hard. Kyoka cursed. With all those attacks, it looks like Combusken is nearly down for the count. Zero said. Combusken struggled to get back up. Come on, Combusken. Get up. Izuku cheered for the Pokemon, his eyes glowing blue. Are you just going to let a snowman beat you down like that? Get up. Combusken's eyes snapped open, her own eyes glowing blue, enraged before letting out a yell, its body becoming enveloped in flames and fiery orange light. The students jumped back in shock at the power. What the Arceus is that? Kaminari yelped in shock. It's Combusken's own ability, Blaze. Serena said. It powers up fire-type Pokemon and its abilities, but only when it's in a pinch. Taii watched with wide surprised eyes, his eyes glowing blue. With his sight, while Combusken was glowing red and orange in the color of fire, they noticed a blue and green glow around its body, along with Izuku. Impossible. Taii thought. He subconsciously tapped into their shared bond and used his own aura to activate Combusken's ability. That should be impossible for a beginner. Could this be one for all's doing, or is this Izuku's own power? You ready? Izuku asked his Pokemon. Do you even have to ask? Combusken replied. But, cause I'm feeling fired up now. Izuku said with a grin. Charge. Combusken sped off in bang, leaving behind a trail of fire in his steps towards Darmanitan. Todoroki's surprise was quickly shaken off, and he yelled power up or not, you are not winning this. Darmanitan, rock slide and avalanche. Darmanitan glowed in power and roared, raining down rocks, snow, and ice down onto Combusken. Flame charge, air lace. Izuku roared. Combusken yelled as it cloaked itself in fire, its body likewise glowing bluish-white. It zipped and sped around the rocks, and blasting through the ice and snow with ease. It sped towards Darmanitan like a flaming comet. This is crazy. Kaminari yelled in both awe and fear of the fight. Come on, Deku, win this. Uraraka cheered. Go get him, Deku, Combusken. Togakure cheered too. Rock Tomb. Todoroki yelled. Darmanitan fired multiple rock tombs towards Combusken, some landing and creating large rock pillars in its way. Breakthrough, break, and fire with flamethrower. Izuku yelled. Combusken's arms glowed white and smashed through the rocks and pillars easily. It then fired a more powerful flamethrower at Darmanitan that consumed it in flames. Zen headbutt. Full power. Spinning double kick. The two trainers yelled in fury. Darmanitan roared as it burst through the flames, shining blue and its charged. Combusken flipped and performed a few cartwheels before launching itself forward with his arms, sailing towards her foe with a yell and glowing white feet while spinning like a top, looking like a fiery drill. The two collided and clashed, and struggled against each other, sparks of fire and psychic energy sparking everywhere. Go! The two students roared. The two Pokémon roared in power and fury before creating a massive explosion of white light and fire. The group took cover while Cementus, nearby, erected a barrier of cement for protection. Taii stood still, his coat and hair flapping in the wind, wisps of fire, and debris bouncing off of a transparent blue shield around him. Izuku took cover while Todoroki erected a wall of ice as a barrier. As the dust settled, the opposing trainers and group looked towards the result of the fight. The debris cleared to show both Combusken and Darmanitan on the ground, motionless, with faintest swirls for eyes. Overcoming his shock, Taii announced, Combusken and Darmanitan are both unable to battle. This round and match is a draw. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.